pleasure of meeting our next guest, to another very talented broadcaster, Nick De La Torre, on EWTN affiliate Guadalupe Radio. And I had the pleasure of chatting it up several times with Alan Smith. And when I heard about his book, The Soul of the Disciple, Fulton Sheen's Meditations on the Cross, the Eucharist, and the Christian Life, I knew I had to bring him on Epiphany. Alan, thanks for joining us here today. And I'm so excited to talk about your new book, and congratulations on publishing it.
Vanessa, it's great to be here. And, it's been about a 4-year break between my last book and this one. And so it was nice to dust the rust off and start talking about Fulton Sheen, because this is his year of beatification. So people are asking us, who's he about? What's his spirituality? How can I connect with him and learn more about this great blessed to be? So thanks for having me on the show.
The only wrong thing about the book, Alan, is that it doesn't have your autograph in it. So, when we get to meet in person, I'm holding on to this for that signature.
Okay.
And, it's published by Sophia Institute Press. And, I can't wait to call him Saint Fulton Sheen as soon as he is fully beatified. So let me ask you this, Alan Smith. You are the director of the Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen Mission Society of Canada. How did that happen? How did that come to be? What led you to where you are today?
All right. Well, everything is a God incident, and there's no coincidence with God. Yeah. And so in 2009, we were dropping, my good wife and I, Isabel, we were dropping our daughter off to school to a Catholic college called Our Lady's Seat of Wisdom. And there I was getting my daughter tucked into her dormitory, kind of a good father, protective custody, making sure your daughter's okay.
Sure.
And my wife Isabel was in the library, and there was a box of free books, and so she grabbed the books because they were free. And I said to her, honey, what'd you get this time? And she says, I got some Fulton Sheen. And I went, oh, who's Fulton Sheen? I didn't find Fulton Sheen till I was 48 years old. Wow. He wasn't on my radar. And so she said, well, I'll read some of his book to you on the way home. We had a 5-hour drive going home, and she opened up the book. It was called Peace of Soul, his classic from 1949. And the first line in that book was, unless souls are saved, nothing is saved. And I thought, wow, I haven't heard that language in a long time. Who wants to save a soul? And I thought, you know what? I'm hooked. I want to find out more. I came home and I said, honey, could I borrow that book off of you? And she said, no, get your own Fulton Sheen book. There you go. And, so I went on the internet and I saw he wrote 66 books. And I thought, well, there's got to be a book for me. And there was a book called Victory Over Vice. And it was a 1939 book that Fulton Sheen wrote about the 7 deadly sins and how the antidote for those 7 deadly sins is found in the 7 last words of Christ on the cross. And he nailed it. He hit it out of the park. And after reading that book, I said, what's next? And there was another book and another book and another book. And I had read about 30 of his books in the first year. And what Fulton Sheen did is he wrote small books. There's some big books like Life of Christ, but most of his books were a collection of his radio series, his lessons. And, of course, they're very easy to digest. And that's what Fulton Sheen did so well. He took these, not highfalutin thoughts and words, but he took the great saints and made it so that we could understand it. And that was his gift. And so that's what happened to me. And I just started to share Fulton Sheen. And, I'm an active Sarin and a member of the Knights of Columbus, and they all have an outreach to seminarians. And I thought, I'm going to go to the seminary and see if I can share some Fulton Sheen with the seminarians in my diocese. And the rector of the seminary said, come on down. And I was well received, and I saw that there was a hunger for Fulton Sheen amongst the seminarians, especially his Holy Hour, Sheen's promotion of the Holy Hour, and also Sheen's promotion of the priest as both priest and victim. That's kind of very important today, especially. And so after being well received by one seminary in my local diocese, the other seminaries invited me to speak there. And so I went across Canada, speaking of the at the seminary in Edmonton, Alberta, in Mission, British Columbia, in Quebec. And so, like I say, I got on a whirlwind tour. I never asked for it, but saints pick us. And I was just open to, just the promptings of the Holy Spirit. And so I did that. And then the Sheen Foundation reached out to me from Peoria, Illinois, and Bishop Daniel Jenke said, I love your energy. I love your vision. Could you please be a part of Sheen's canonization process? And so I joined the board in 2013, and then I knew there was a number of Sheen's books that hadn't been republished in 70 or 80 years. And so I went about republishing those books and collected them in anthologies that Sophia Institute Press published, when I was the editor and compiler of those. And, The Cries of Jesus from the Cross, which is my first book of Sheen's writings on the 7 last words. It's in its 12th printing now. It continues to sell out every year, and it's been a real blessing. People are looking for holy wisdom today. And so I just was minding my own business, just dropping my daughter off to a Catholic college, and Fulton Sheen found me, and I just started to share Fulton Sheen, and I found out very quickly that there's many people looking for a wise old sage in today's world. And Fulton Sheen's been doing that generation after generation after generation. So, and everyone has a Sheen story. I'm finding this out very quickly. Everyone has been touched by him.
I have a Sheen story because I grew up listening to my mother listen to Fulton Sheen as a little girl. Had no idea who he was or how profound he was going to be in this world, but she would listen to the cassettes of Fulton Sheen around the house. So, I would listen to his audio as I remember being really little, probably 7, 8 years old. And my mom was listening to Fulton Sheen. And I'm very honored that I was able to offer an endorsement in the book too, and giving me some advanced copies, via email so I could read it. And it's so beautifully done. And so tell us about this book, Alan. How does it differ from other books written about Fulton Sheen and those he has written himself, The Soul of the Disciple?
Right. Yeah. So what people said, okay, Al, you've republished 30 of Sheen's titles. You've been kind of the mastermind behind, republishing his works. And so you've read his works. But you know what? Not saying I'm lazy, but could you make the Coles notes? Could you make it easy for us and kind of write us a little book that would unpack Sheen's main themes of his spirituality and make it something where we just spend a couple of minutes a day, because that's the world that we live in. People love little books like Quotable Sheen. And so what I did was, because I was, promoting these books that had been published through Sophia Institute Press, I was giving retreats. And time again, people would say, I love that talk you gave. Do you have that in writing? Do you have your notes? And I thought, no, you know what? Let's put a retreat book together with my meditations that I give usually if I'm giving a parish mission. And so that's what I did. As I made 5 retreats that I felt were Sheen's spirituality. And so I can run that through quickly just to give a snapshot of what's in the book. But really, the book has this first retreat where we get to know Jesus again. I call it Learning to Gaze, and it's about the holy face of Jesus. And this is what's wrong with society today, is that we don't hate Jesus. We just forgot him. We forgot who he is, what he looks like, what he suffered, all of this stuff. And I think that's where I just try to bring people back to say, let's start with a retreat on the holy face and starting to learn to gaze again. And people say, yeah. And Fulton Sheen was a third order Carmelite. And 30 years into his priesthood, he became a third order Carmelite. And so he, of course, loved St. Therese's spirituality. And of course, her title was St. Therese of the Child Jesus and the Holy Face, because he knew there was something very important about looking upon the face of Christ. And so that was the first retreat. We get to know who Jesus is again. And then the second retreat is called Learning to Remain. And we spend time with the Blessed Virgin Mary. And Fulton Sheen, said time and time again, his favorite book to write was The World's First Love. And of course, it was his writings on the Blessed Virgin Mary. But he would say to us time and time again, look to her holy example, her fiat, how she can say yes to God's holy will, her visitation to her cousin Elizabeth, being there at the foot of the cross. All of these things Our Lady teaches us. And so we spend 10 days just kind of learning from Mama, learning from the Blessed Mother. And we need that because we've lost our way in that, do we really have a good mother in our life? A good father? Of course, we want to have God the Father and the Blessed Virgin Mary. But Fulton Sheen really stresses the importance to remain with Our Lady and be formed by her. We look to our Lord. He spent 30 years with her. And of course, hidden in Nazareth. And the apostles were the beneficiary of Our Lady's wisdom. When our Lord ascended into heaven, he left the apostles with her. And of course, she formed and mothered the infant church. And so she continues the story. She says to the apostles, you spent 3 years with Jesus. I spent more time with him. I want to share about his life and who he is and how we can learn to be with him and be disciples. So Mary forms disciples. And of course, there's a third retreat on the Beatitudes. We like to say that's learning to become. And the Beatitudes really speak to Jesus' life and his holy example. And we have a retreat, of course, on the cross and the 7 last words, and a retreat on the Eucharist. So, I'm going quickly here, but people get the sense those all connect. They're beautiful. And that's what I just tried to do in this book, The Soul of a Disciple.
I absolutely love it. The fact that you're walking, it's not just a book to read, but a book to really meditate on. You're walking us through these wonderful retreats as we grow in our own faith. And when I was the first retreat, the Holy Face, Learning to Gaze, when I think about that, what you can't see here, Alan and my listeners, is I have a beautiful picture of Jesus on my desk. Okay. I look at this picture all day long. He's my CEO. He's my confidant. He's my companion. He's my coworker. And I gaze at his face every single day. And this was gifted to me. Can we look at any picture of Jesus? Does it have to be a particular one of when we gaze on the face of the Lord?
No, it can be any picture of the Holy Face. I think some people love the image of the Divine Mercy. Yeah. Other people love the image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. I am fond of the Veil of Veronica because it's our Lord who's suffering, but his eyes are open. The Shroud of Turin, his eyes are closed, but on the Veil of Veronica, his eyes are open. And Fulton Sheen, encouraged us to become Veronicas, to be the ones that wipe the face of Jesus in the poor, in the suffering, to really step up and be those, people of charity and compassion. And so I love that image of the Holy Face, of course, of the Veil of Veronica. And it's the image that St. Therese of the Child Jesus and the Holy Face contemplated all her years in Carmel. And so I follow the lead of St. Therese to look at that image of the Veil of Veronica for meditation and contemplation.
We're talking about The Soul of a Disciple with the author Alan Smith today, Fulton Sheen's meditation on the cross, the Eucharist, and the Christian life, leading up to the beatification of Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Alan, you wrote this, like you just went over with us, in the forms of these different retreats. Do you see people using this during retreats, creating retreats out of each almost chapter?
Yeah. Well, I set it up so that people could pray the retreats privately. And that's what most people do. Some may read a meditation on the commute to work. Other people may have a bit of time each morning for spiritual reflection. But I also wanted to make it so that small groups in parishes could, take a part of a retreat. And it doesn't take much. I think like I say, 1 liter. And of course, we can always photocopy pages too. It doesn't matter to me. But it's that idea idea, and it's nice in small group settings. And that's kind of a nice thing. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of that because of the variety of the retreats. Some may want to have a Marian retreat. Others may want, something on the cross or something on the Holy Hour in the Eucharist. And there's even a bonus retreat of Holy Week. So other people may want that. So it is set up for success in a parish or a small group setting. But I think the majority of people will pray the retreats quietly in their own sacred space at home and in their churches and in the adoration chapels. But I think it's that idea of praying with the book, not just reading the book, but praying with the book. That's so important.
How has your faith, how have you grown in your own faith? Well, how did researching Archbishop Fulton Sheen over the years and writing this book help you on your own faith journey?
Well, you know what? I think Fulton Sheen taught me, everybody's got to suffer. I mean, it was a song by Stan Fortuna, Father Stan Fortuna, but I think he just taught me about the cross and life's lessons, that it's when we unite ourselves to Jesus that good things happen. And of course, he taught me about that intimacy with Christ, to go and spend time with him in the Blessed Sacrament, not to do all the talking, but to listen to him. And, we become what we adore. If I'm spending my whole day scrolling on social media, what do I really become? But if I spend time with Jesus, listening to Jesus, talking to Jesus, hopefully I become like him. And I think, what Fulton Sheen taught me is, as a priest, he brings Jesus to the people, but hopefully, again, he brings the people to Jesus. And I think this is what we're called to, this mission of being disciples, that we hopefully bring Jesus to the people, and by our holy example, but we in turn bring these souls closer to him, that we get to bring people to Jesus. So this is, I think what he taught me was that mission. It was that first line again: unless souls are saved, nothing is saved. And those words keep echoing in my mind. Are you in the business of saving souls, including your own, Al Smith? You've got to try to save your own soul. So do everything you can. So again, that mission statement of Fulton Sheen, unless souls are saved, nothing is saved, that continues to be an inspiration for me. But he's taught me how to suffer. He's taught me how to listen. He's taught me how to love. So many good lessons. But he taught me especially to have the Blessed Virgin Mary in my life. Let her be my mother. Let her be my consoler. She's my, co-redeemer, mediatrix of all graces, all of these things. And so we need to make room for Mary. And I think that's what I try to do each day. And I'm glad that Fulton Sheen picked me a couple of years ago to be a disciple,
Yeah.
And he's formed me. So.
The Soul, the Disciple, published by Sophia Institute Press, Sophia Institute Press. And we're going to have it up at the AveMariaRadio.net in our own bookstore. Alan Smith is the author. What are you hoping, Alan, after people read it, that they will, what are you hoping they'll do? The call to action.
Yeah. Well, I pray that, I see this as a rule of life. We always think of, there's the Benedictine rule, the Carmelite rule, the Dominican rule, everyone's got a rule. But I think Fulton Sheen is trying to provide us with a rule, to spend time gazing upon Jesus, to spend time with the Blessed Virgin Mary, to be formed with the Beatitudes, to become like him, to, learn to love and stand at the foot of the cross with the Blessed Virgin Mary, with St. John and the other saints. And of course, learning to abide with him. We're going to spend eternity looking upon the face of Christ and being with him. And so let's practice here on earth. This is a dress rehearsal for eternity. I get to be with the Lord. So it's that rule of life that has that peace. And I just want people to be introduced to a good friend. And that's what I see Fulton Sheen as. He's a friend that came into my life that said, I want to share with you my love of Christ, and I want you to have the same love that I have. And, he just was, I think of the humble roots coming from the Midwest, and he was a farm boy that studied hard, prayed hard, and of course, he thought of everybody else but himself. And I think people who have met Fulton Sheen say the same things. He never really thought of himself. He was always thinking of others. And I think that's what I want to imitate. Always thinking not about me, but about others. So with God's grace and Our Lady's help, maybe that will happen, and we'll all be saints with him. But I want to introduce people to my friend, and hopefully he'll become your friend in the not so distant future. And this opportunity we have in St. Louis to celebrate Sheen is just one of these things where we get to celebrate a good friend. And I say to people, there's a website, and it's simply titled celebratesheen.com. And it's the site to go to get tickets for the beatification, to find out more about all the events that are happening. And so if you want to earmark that, it's simply celebratesheen.com. And there's lots there. I'll be there for the duration. You'll find me there on Thursday. I'll be at the Sophia Institute Press booth, at the EWTN booth, and floating around, but I'll be there, and I can even, again, make sure I got a signed copy for you, Vanessa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And a sneak peek too. We have a second book. I wrote a book for EWTN Publishing called America's Apostle, and it will be the official commemorative edition book for Sheen's beatification. So you'll see my name on the front cover of the book. And I was busy writing. I made The Soul of a Disciple. I wrote it last year and at the beginning of this year. And of course, then they said, we've got the beatification happening in September. Can you write a second book for us and talk about the life of Fulton Sheen and also share some of his spirituality? So that'll be released September 15th. Again, America's Apostle with EWTN Publishing and Sophia Institute Press. So I'm just giving a little bit of a sneak peek today of what's coming up next with Fulton Sheen. So, but right now, The Soul of a Disciple, we want everyone to, of course, enjoy this book, to pray with it. And Vanessa, thank you for your endorsement. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Ellen, it's a pleasure to have you on. The Soul of the Disciple, Fulton Sheen's Meditations on the Cross, the Eucharist, and the Christian Life by Alan Smith. Thank you, Ellen, for being with us. God bless you, and I can't wait to see you in person one day and definitely have you sign the book.
Yes. What I'll have to do is drop into the Detroit studios on my way down to, and then we can do something for lunch. And
that would be great. Okay, give me a shout out. I would love to catch up.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that.
God bless. Ellen Smith with us, The Soul of a Disciple, Fulton Sheen's Meditations on the Cross, the Eucharist, and the Christian Life. This is published by Sophia Institute Press. We got to take a break. We'll be right back after that.